Um, Before we go to the post game, let's run through this pipeline update,
Hmm.
if you'll allow me. So I wanted to throw to Winona LaDuke. Well, this is actually 4 years ago, but and Winona's like one of the best at
Hmm.
speaking on behalf of people doing water protecting activities, water protectors, and um, um, this is from 4 years ago, but this is a really good summary of the Line 3 end bridge replacement, they're saying. And it really goes back to, we've talked about in Texas, they've got the problem with abandoned oil wells.
Hmm.
And this is the exact same thing. This is like, I think being framed in a way that's like, oh, look at these protesters are getting in the way of us getting this new infrastructure. And really, the problem is we haven't had an accounting of what the old infrastructure has been and done to the world. And so here's Winona introducing this.
What is line 3? A lot of people want to know, and a lot of people don't know. So think of it this way. There are 6 really old pipelines that they put through in northern Minnesota, shipping diluted tar sands from Alberta to Superior, Wisconsin. And one of those lines is called Line 3. It has, according to Enbridge, about 900 structural anomalies in it. Structural anomalies are things like small little pinhole leaks, maybe it comes some cracks, and some of those end up to be big problems, like that Kalamazoo spill. That was a structural anomaly. Line 3, it's old and it's corroding and it's at the end of its life. It's already had a number of leaks and spills, and frankly, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. There is a likelihood that there is a whole bunch of contamination under the present line. And once that corrodes, our children and grandchildren may one day watch it drain a lake or a wetland or flood a farm field. Fixing these problems is very expensive, so Enbridge wants to abandon the pipeline, walk away, and build a brand new one in a brand new corridor. Enbridge calls this a replacement project. They're replacing Line 3. They are not replacing Line 3. They are putting in a whole new corridor and doubling the size of the line. That's not a replacement. That's a brand new line. And that's what's wrong. So we've got 2 problems. First, we've got a problem of the proposed new Sandpiper and Line 3 corridor through the heart of our best lakes and wild rice watersheds and through our treaty territories. We also have the problem of this old crumbling line that Enbridge wants to abandon. And right now, what abandonment means is that they just leave it and walk away. And the company says
And
that
I just want to say, like, on that, the topic of, through like the wild rice habitat, like, it's just so disgusting how we're so desensitized to the idea we're doing this to the, if you know anything about
Hmm.
Minnesota natural history, like those wild rice fields are just sort of central, particularly to indigenous identity, but just like natural history of this planet, and we don't give any fucks about it at all. Um, uh, yeah, I'll continue.
Another thing to plow through.
Right, exactly, like an obstacle. And I mean, to the extent it does matter, it's like, oh, that's maybe a leverage point that we can get the Army Corps of Engineers to step in on. But I'll continue with Winona here.
not clear that there is any liability from the Enbridge Corporation. The worst part is that neither the United States government or the state of Minnesota has any plan to deal with it. The good news is that the Ojibwe tribes are standing up, and a lot of landowners, county commissioners, and mayors are getting increasingly concerned about who's going to be liable for Enbridge's mess. So tell Governor.
So um, that's a fast forward to now. Hundreds and hundreds of arrests. Like last Friday, 20 something people were arrested. In June, I believe 200 at one day. Um, and I mean, again, like this idea that they could just forsake a pipeline and expect to not have to deal with that and just let us do another one because of how important this is. I mean, it's really insulting and gross. Where we're at now is it's close to being finished, unfortunately. Uh, the remaining sort of Hail Marys are getting the Army Corps of Engineers, similar to what happened with the Dakota Access Pipeline, to revoke a permit that allows them to cross water. They've already crossed it's 22 river crossings, 200, and goes under 200 bodies of water. I've already had 10,000 gallons of drilling fluid spilled into those waterways in the construction so far. And like I said, Merkley, Ilhan, other Democrats are calling on the Army Corps to revoke the permit. And I hope it gets done. I guess I'll leave it there. But because this really is about Biden's credibility when it comes to climate.
Mhm.
And we need to move on to that. And like I said, 247 arrested in June, 20 arrested on Friday. All I'll say about that is support the bail funds and for anybody, any water protectors, and also spread the concept of jury nullification, which you can't convict unless everybody agrees that they're guilty. And you don't need to. You can say like I think that all that evidence is legit, but I still think not guilty. So look into
Mhm.
that. Go ahead,
Which,
David.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take away from the subject matter here, but this is like why like a jury trial has that kind of radical potential in my like perspective, in the sense that like, you know, the idea that like as a member of the society you can say like we don't want to do this, like we think that the way that this is being conducted or whatever is wrong, and being able to, you know, intercede like that, I think is a very critical right.
And there's a conspiracy of silence around it too, to like
Mhm.
let people know that it is a very democratic check on the legal system.
And
And so
it's so amazing, and then it's like it's just at every moment it's just weakened essentially.
yeah, it's like this the movie 12 Angry Men, where like you don't actually even need to persuade everybody. You should
Mhm.
say like I don't agree, fuck you guys. I don't think we should send people to prison for drug offenses.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, oil companies are going to care as much as they are sued to care or compelled by the state to care. I want to move on to another pipeline in the area, the Keystone pipeline. Of course, it's great that the Keystone XL was defeated. We had Joshua Kahn Russell on to talk about that. But let's just go into these shiny new objects that are being we're not allowed to have because of the nasty environmentalists. Here's a report from my hometown, West Dakota Fox, your news leader. This is, yeah,
Oh
KFYI.
man.
KFYI report: Keystone pipeline spills caused by design and manufacturing issues. Now, what other issues are there? Like,
I was about to say.
I mean, really, like, shout out to the construction crews, I guess, because that's, I guess, not manufacturing or design. So good job, boys. You put it in correctly. But
No offense, but that's such a local news headline. Like you have no idea what happened from.
yeah, so and just to read a little bit from it, a new federal report from the Government Accountability Office says design and manufacturing issues are to blame for a series of spills along the Keystone XL pipeline, including 2 in South Dakota. Um, and this is just a funny matter of fact way, like when you hear, and we'll get to the Dakota Access pipeline to wrap this up, but when you hear assurances when a pipeline is going through, like for instance with Enbridge line 3, this is the most studied pipeline ever. It's so studied and it's going to be so safe. This is the reality of it. So while the GAO report states that pipeline has experienced a similar number of accidents compared to other pipelines, the severity of those spills has worsened in recent years. Keystone's worst spill took place in 2017 near the town of Amherst in northeast South Dakota. Over 250,000 gallons of oil leaked in that accident, according to the report. In response to those spills, as well as to North Dakota, the U.S. Department of Transportation ordered TC Energy to investigate and fix the root causes. The investigations found that these accidents were caused by issues related to the original design, manufacturing of the pipe, or construction of the pipeline. So I guess the construction guys didn't get up. So at all levels, failure. Okay, so that's a Keystone, and these are just the ones that cross North Dakota. Look, I'm a North Dakota boy. I'm sure there's other pipelines out there that need attention, but let's go now to the Dakota Access pipeline, which unfortunately was approved. And we have a recent increase. Recent headlines are increase in capacity, or increase in barrels per day going through the pipes, from just over 500,000 to 750,000. This in the context of a couple things. Remember what I said about those safety violations. So the Dakota Access pipeline, the Keystone older pipeline, same with this old Enbridge line 3. Let's see what a new pipeline can do. Let's see what these new bells and whistles. So here is a headline from the Williston Herald. Dakota Access faces fines, compliance orders for safety violations from 2017 to 2019. And I say like this is when this pipeline's been around. more than 9,500 alarms were set off in a 2-year period due to a wildly fluctuating nitrogen-reliant pressure relief valve system on the Dakota Access pipeline, according to a notice of probable violation and proposed civil. So, like, I mean, your alarm systems. Try to think of it over a 2-year period. There's about 8 locations here. Well, Johnson's Corner, Watford City, Trenton, Ramberg, Stanley, and Epping. I've been to Watford City. I don't know about the other places. 9,500 alarms. What is an alarm system? Like, that is a fucking Monty Python sketch that you have 9,500 alarms going off. Like, how would you know which one is real? Right? Like, it's just a false alarm. As just like, it looks like there will be blood behind you.
Insane.
Local climate conditions were causing rapid pressure fluctuations on a nitrogen supply. I will say this about North Dakota. Rapid temperature fluctuations there. It's a place that, of course, gets very cold, people know about, but also can experience like just days and days of 100-degree heat. So might want to have the pressure release stuff. But so yeah, nitrogen supply, allowing the valve set points to fluctuate for such a long time, blah, blah, blah. And this is from the spokeswoman, Lisa Coleman, said the violations were identified in a standard audit completed in early 2019. But listen to this quote. All but one of the items identified have already been addressed or are in the process of being addressed, she told the Wilson Herald, but she wouldn't say what the remaining issue was, so which is not how you comfort somebody. So, oh yeah, we saw all of that except one thing. Anyway, Dakota Access pipelines have received numerous litigation from environmental groups from Standing Rock, of course. So their alarm system's a mess. The other thing to just kind of jump onto the civil liberties angle of this. It's got an article from the Dickinson Press here. And this is about our buddies from Tiger Swan, the mercenary firm that was doing security work for Energy Transfer Partners, is currently suing the North Dakota Private Investigators and Security Board to suppress 16,000 documents pertaining to their use of Tiger Swan. Who the Intercept exposed. I got a few articles here in the Intercept that are very worth people's perusal in how these companies are literally like infiltrating movements, sending, goons in undercover to infiltrate. And I mean, ultimately, we talked about how a Fed informant planted a gun on Red Fawn Fallis and got her locked up for 4 years. But also, like, leaked documents reveal counterterrorism tactics used at Standing Rock's to defeat pipeline insurgencies. I mean, think about that as a terminology. And yeah, there's another good reporting by Aileen Brown. So that's what's going on with Dakota Access Pipeline. Capacity is up, more barrels moving through it, while the alarm system is completely fucked. And the company that has put in it there is trying to suppress documents related to their use of a mercenary firm that I believe got people bit by dogs. In addition to for that, that shouldn't be illegal, obviously, right? Like, it shouldn't be illegal for the Fed, like we talked with Chip. It should be illegal for the Feds to do that stuff. It shouldn't be illegal. It shouldn't be legal for like private mercenary firms to put fake leftists and get people to do whatever. I mean, manipulate in whatever way they want to manipulate. That manipulation shouldn't be legal. Yeah,
I mean that's absolutely insane. It is. Yeah, I mean, like, it's frightening enough to think of the government doing it, but basically giving opening the door for these private firms to do whatever they want.
And just one final thing: the only way this is even close, these documents are even potentially going to be disclosed, is because Energy Transfer Partners was sued or because they were operating without a permit in North Dakota. So they've been lying about the extent of their activities because they're in trouble for operating without a permit. That's where these came from. If it wasn't for that, if they were just permitted, then there'd be no recourse to get these documents at all. It's my understanding.
Insane. I mean, that was such a critical recap too of like touching on, these things are expanding as we speak. And the ones that are still are extremely dangerous and damaging to our environment. I don't know. I know you brought this up at the beginning, but it is exactly like what we're seeing with like these abandoned wells here in Texas, right? Which is, we're going to profit from the natural resources of your society. We're going to pillage and destroy and completely ignore treaties that have been signed with native peoples. And also, when shit hits the fan, yeah, you're going to have to come by and find some kind of patchwork way to clean it up, because we're going to find a way to have absolutely no responsibility. And if you want to see any kind of window into what climate catastrophe is going to look like when it's like ×5, when this is happening, everywhere, this is a perfect example of it, right? It's going to come down to personal responsibility, right? We know, which is nonsensical, right? But that's what they're going to sort of argue. And they're going to say like, oh, create a community organization to clean up the shit that we did when we were robbing your community for decades. Right? Yeah. It's horrifying. And I think I'm really happy to be bringing that up though, because it's one of those things that it just sort of like sneaks underneath the radar, right? These are those slow drip problems that you read about when they've gotten too big and you almost can't do much about them.
Yeah, and just to quickly address the best sort of arrow in the pipeline's quiver, which is the jobs they create. And I think it's a mistake to dismiss those kinds of jobs. The idea that they're not permanent for a certain community is definitely true. But like one of the pipeline workers has said in one of the articles I saw, like we still do this around the country, right? Like for us, those jobs are great. And that's to be expected from these sorts of unions, in my opinion, until we create the grounds, and this infrastructure package and Green New Deal and these sorts of things are important, because unless people see another place to sustain themselves with jobs, and it needs to be from Uncle Sam in this case, that's just to be expected. That comes with the territory, these sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like exactly the kind of mentality that comes about from like forced scarcity too, right? It's like we need to hunker down and protect what we've got, because any erosion of that is going to mean like a lower quality of life for us, right? This is what we talked with Ryan Pollack about, right? This is why just transition is such an important concept, and it's something that you just can't skip, and it's been skipped, unfortunately, for far too long amongst the left and a lot of the environmental movement. But this is a great example as to why, like, not having done that outreach, puts us at a disadvantage now, and we need to sort of do double time to rebuild those bridges.
Absolutely.